Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Secretary Tillerson, for being with us here today. I've been a member of this committee for 2 decades now. I've chaired the Middle East Subcommittee and the Asia and Pacific Subcommittee as well. And the issue I'd like to discuss with you this morning is Taiwan. As a founding member of the Congressional Taiwan Caucus and having been to that nation, and I use that term nation intentionally quite a few times, and I take the commitments of our country that we've made with Taiwan very seriously, and I believe that you do too. Taiwan is a close ally of ours. It's one that truly exercises freedom and democracy and can be a role model to other nations facing an aggressive, bullying neighbor. Taiwan faces an unrelenting threat from China, which is nearly 600 ballistic missiles aimed directly at Taiwan. And although Taiwan enjoys de facto independence, China's ultimate goal, as we know, is the annexation of the island. Therefore, the Taiwan Strait remains a potential hotspot. The PRC's aggression towards Taiwan has only grown over the years. The PRC more and more is referring to Taiwan as a core interest to them. They continue to block Taiwan's participation in international gatherings, and the world, including the United States, embarrassingly, usually yields to China's bullying. Further, China continues its long campaign to pressure nations around the world to stop their recognition of Taiwan, and Panama just this week announced its intention to yield to that pressure. Fortunately, the 38-year-old Taiwan Relations Act is still alive and in place, and this historic legislation has thus far maintained peace and stability. But we must be clear to the PRC that if push comes to shove, the United States will stand with Taiwan. Now, Mr. Secretary, a couple of questions. China would never allow us to determine who they can meet with, yet because of fear of offending China, principally, we won't allow high Taiwanese officials to set foot in this city, our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., right here. Some years back, a couple dozen members of Congress, including myself, had to get on a plane and fly to New York City one evening after votes to meet with the president of Taiwan, President Chen. I know some other members are nodding because they were on that same plane with me, because he wasn't allowed to come here to our nation's capital. Now, an important bill to remedy this, which I've introduced in previous Congresses as well, H.R. 535, the Taiwan trial, the President, Vice President, Foreign Minister, and Defense Minister to come here, and it's being marked up tomorrow in the Asian Pacific Subcommittee, and I'd welcome the administration's support for that measure, and I'd appreciate your comment, please.
Well, I think, Congressman, you have summarized it quite well in terms of the situation as we see it today between China and Taiwan. As you know, the China-U.S. relationship has been defined for the past 50 years by our one China policy and our agreement around one China policy. They have their interpretation of what that means, and we have ours, and we've agreed that we will accommodate each other's interpretation. But it has led to 50 years of stability in the region. It has prevented conflict and has allowed for this enormous economic growth that has gone on, much of which we have benefited from. As we began our dialogue with Chinese leadership with this new administration, as you know, there was some questioning of our commitment to one China early on. The President has reaffirmed that we are committed to the one China policy. We are also completely committed to the Taiwan Relations Act and fulfilling all of our commitments to them under that act. But we are also in a discussion with China now about what is our relationship going to be for the next 50 years. How do we enter another era of stability and absence of conflict? And Taiwan, clearly to the Chinese, is a part of that discussion. So it is important as we engage with them that we are able to fulfill our commitments to Taiwan, which we have every intention of doing, and that the question is the one China policy sustainable for the next 50 years? And those are the kind of discussions we're having. They are extremely complex in many regards. But this is what we seek as another 50 years of stability and no conflict with China in the Pacific region. Taiwan is a big element of that. North Korea is a big element of that. They're island building and militarization of islands is a significant element of that. All of these are in our discussion with them about how do we define this relationship for the next half century to ensure we have a continued era of no conflict and stability.